Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast, Marathon of Marriage Special Edition series. With me today is an awesome couple that I've had the pleasure of knowing a little while now. They are my brother and sister in Christ. We attend the same church. We are also actively involved in our marriage ministry. Just a couple to know. They keep you in stitches when we're talking with them. Just a great sense of humor and just all around great individuals. And they've taken time out of their very busy schedules to hang out with us for a little while to share a little bit about their marriage journey with the hopes of inspiring and encouraging and uplifting others that are either currently married or possibly maybe you've been thinking about getting married and you want a little insight on some people who are actively involved in what we call this marathon of marriage right now. Again, trying to encourage people to not only understand that it's going to take a lot of work to make your marriages last, but again, just to be when it gets tough to keep on fighting that good fight and hanging in there. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our featured couple for the evening, Mr. Robert Faulkner and Miss Shana Faulkner. Robert, Shana, thank you so much for being with me this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we jump in to our segments for this evening, I do want to give the two of you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourselves, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Just kind of give them a taste of who is Team Faulkner. We can start. I'll start with you, Shana. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about Shana.
Well, hello, my name is Shana Faulkner, and I am a mother, grandmother, and a wife. I work in the medical field in neurology. Um, I sing in the church choir. Uh, what else can I say? I'm not from Texas. I'm originally from Arkansas, born and raised in Marion, Arkansas. And I'm currently a resident of Texas now.
Awesome, awesome. And Robert.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Robert L. Faulkner Jr. I had to put that junior in there. That speaks volumes. Yes, I am a junior. Proud to be a junior. I'm originally from Ohio. I'm currently, as you know, a resident here in Texas. For all you sports figures out there, I'm a diehard Cleveland fan, Cleveland
Yes,
Browns.
he is.
Cleveland Guardians. I'm sorry, and all you LeBron haters. I'm still a Ohio boy at heart. I am a area manager for a big, not if I say a big conglomerate store. I'm not gonna say the name. Area manager for that. I am over the delivery and installation teams. So I tell a lot of people, I'm very big on customer service. And as man of God, thanks to my wife, I will attest that to her. I had been out of the church for a moment, but now that I'm back in the church, I can honestly say that, the journey has been very, very uplifting these past couple months.
Awesome, awesome. We always are grateful of that. The importance of God, not only individually in your life, but of course, as a married couple,
Right.
the two of you putting God first at the head of your life. And so, for my listeners tuning in, get ready to hear a lot of that because that's a major component to our marriage is being able to survive the test of time and all of the storms and battles that come along with it. If you think you can kind of make it on your own without God in the mix of it, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. So, with that said, we're going to jump in and show you a little where we're coming from with this. So let's, like I said, let's go ahead and get into our conversation. And I'm going to start off first by saying, when it comes to our journeys, regardless if we're talking about our life journeys in general, or in this case, we're talking about our marriage journeys, we would be if we didn't take the opportunity to go back to the beginning from where it all started. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. And so if you would, and you can pick and choose which one of you want to tell the story first, and the second one can fact check to see if the person who told the story first is correct. But if you would, tell us how did the two of you meet? And what was it ultimately about the other that you saw in that individual that you said, you know what? I think I want to do life with her. I think I want to do life with him. So you pick which one of you want to go first. Who
I
wants to
will
tell the story?
let my
You gonna
wife
let me
go
go
first. Yes,
first?
because
Okay.
she's the fact person. She's gonna give you the exact date, time, place, area, and things like that.
Now go that deep.
And I'll co-sign. So go ahead, man.
Okay,
You
so
gonna
this
co-sign? Okay.
met. We actually met online.
All right.
We met, I think it was like the end of 2020, 2015. We met online. We were doing a long distance thing. He actually drove 6 hours for a first date. I thought he was joking, but the man drove 6 hours for the first date. We went to Applebee's, had a nice dinner and everything, and then it just took off. And he would drive from Midland to McKinney, and I would sometimes drive from McKinney to Midland, and we would do this off and on, off and on. And I think we had a pretty good relationship going at the time. However, I don't think that we both were really. Maybe it was me. I'm not going to say both of us, but I don't think we really knew what God had in store for us because we kind of ghosted each other. I think we dated for almost 2 years. Actually, his family came for Thanksgiving. I think it was in 2017. I thought he was going to ask to marry me then, but I guess I must have been wrong. Because, honey, it didn't happen.
He said all this food I cooked and he ain't bring no.
Right?
I know, right? I slaved in that kitchen, honey. So then after that, we kind of ghosted one another and we kind of went our separate ways. But through it all, I think we still kind of kept up with one another via social media. So I think, I ended up meeting someone else, getting married and everything. He was in another relationship and everything. And that did not work out. And I kind of just was like, okay, I need to take a breather, see, work on me a little bit because out of that equation, I was the common denominator. So I'm like, okay, maybe I need to work on self. So in doing so, I reached out to him, but we were just like, I think I told you happy birthday on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know his number was still the same, so I think I told him happy birthday. He was impressed that I remembered his birthday. I'm like, okay, why wouldn't I remember it? So we kind of were going back and forth, and he thought I was still married. I was still married, but we were separated. I never said a word until one day we were talking, and I kind of missed his conversation because, like I said, we did have a really good relationship. He just was. I don't know what happened, but anyway, we got back together, and we were just talking one day, and I did tell him that I was separated. I had been separated all this time, and he made one statement to me, and when he said it to me, so he was like, the men that you were with, they just don't understand you. You have a very strong personality. And he said that I never had a problem with your personality. I know that you have a very strong personality. And at that moment, something clicked, and I was like, he was the one all the time. But I guess God just had a way of, making me go through what I went through in order to see that. So in doing so, we started back dating. He would come back and forth from Texas. We ended up getting back together. He asked me to marry him, and I was like, okay, I guess. And here we are. We eloped, went to Vegas, and got married.
Wow. Interesting.
Oh.
So,
So,
you
so
said about those facts. I can see how she broke it down like that. That's why I let her go first. Yes.
so now you can tell us what really happened. No,
Yeah.
I'm just
Hey,
kidding.
I'm going to tell you what really. Let me say this. So we definitely our love story is probably it should be a movie or a book because this is when the online thing first started.
Hmm.
So we met on actually what the black people.
BlackPeopleMeet.com.
I don't know.
It was BlackPeopleMeet.com.
If that's even like if you've been married a long time, you probably know nothing about that. So I'm online. I'm going through the profiles. So I'm like, oh, she's kind of cute. I'm a hair guy. I was first attracted. I was like, man, her hair is sharp. So that was the first one. So I messaged her. We start talking, whatever. I'm like, hey, so what are you doing? I'm gonna come down and see you. She's like, well, I'm
at work.
yeah, you were at work. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, well, when do you get off? I think it was the next. I think it was the following day. I said, well, I'm gonna come down and see you, and let's go hang out or whatever.
I thought he was joking.
So, funny story is, I was coming from Midland. So Midland, for everybody familiar, Midland, Odessa. It's a small town. I mean, we have like 2-lane highways. It's very rural, whatever. I would never forget this. She lives. At the time she lived in McKinney. So I got off of 75,
Mm-hmm.
and it was this this light, and it was a 4-way intersection. I literally got confused and I was nervous too at the same time. I pulled out in the middle of the intersection. These cars are blowing at me. I had to go through the intersection. I was thinking, oh my God, this is a bad sign. But it wasn't. Like I said, we went to Applebee's, had a good evening. Uh, hung out. Like I said, through those 2 years, I can honestly say I don't think we really never really had an
No,
argument. It
we
was it was
did.
it was just like a, you know, it's on God's time.
Yeah.
I've definitely learned that it was nothing about uh, we didn't have a bad
No,
relationship.
we didn't.
My parents loved her. She met my family, my sister. She even went. I even took her to
A funeral.
my uncle, God rest his soul, took her to a my uncle's funeral. My dad preached, so it was like it was always good. But like I said, it was on
It was on
God's
God's
time
time.
because, like I said, we've been through so much since then, and now it's only made us even love and stronger and everything else.
Yeah, I think, like I told him one day, I think the older that we've gotten, like I told him, I said, I said I would never get married again, but I did. And I think, we kind of knew one another.
Hmm.
And like I was saying to him, versus my other marriages, that I think I felt that I did things differently when it came to choosing my spouses, previous spouses. Um, Whereas we didn't like, we actually got to know one another. We
Right.
became friends first, and it was
Hmm.
like, okay. And he also just like, he encourages me to do a lot of things when I, doubt that I could do it. So, he's just more supportive. And like, he said to me, he see that I am a very strong, independent person. And for some men, that's intimidation. So he's willing to let me be that strong person. I've never permitted a man to take the lead. So, I let him lead because I always felt,
Sometimes, sometimes,
but
sometimes.
I always felt that no one
Yeah,
could lead me, But actually, I actually have taken my cape off and I've kind of relaxed a little and let him love me the way I deserve to be loved.
absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, that is an interesting story because it's like you met online,
Hmm.
and again, you can only capture so much online and over the phone. You were obviously, Robert, impressed enough to make this long travel to
Exactly.
come see her, and then you guys are saying everything was actually cool. You're dating, it's
Hmm.
growing, it's smooth, and then all of a sudden, like you said, you kind of ghosted one another. It was this pause. Was there? I wanted to speak to that for a minute. Do you believe that? I guess that initial separation between the two of you, was it almost a scenario where it was going too well and created some worries in you, or what exactly, if you don't mind sharing, what exactly caused that first pause, when, because everything that you've spoken up to that point was like it was going well, and then we just stopped. So it's like, and usually when you hear something like that, and I don't want to assume anything, but usually when you hear that, the reservations are not so much that things were going bad, but sometimes people get a little nervous because it's almost going better than expected, and you were waiting for something bad to happen and it didn't happen, and then you kind of freeze up. And I don't know if that was your situation or not, but I'm asking the question anyway, just kind of curious as to what would you say was the primary reason behind the pause.
I think I don't. I can speak for me. I think, and we both. This is funny you said it. We discussed it a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I don't think that we were ready per se.
Mm-hmm.
It was like yeah, everything was going good. This is the time I was working. She was even talking about relocating. I was moving to Austin. We had looked at places. We thought about transferring. Her daughter was her last year of high school.
I even got a
She
position
got a
there.
position in Austin, and all of a sudden, it was just like, you know what? And I still think about like, why technically, why did we? And the crazy part about it was, she's like, well, you were talking to somebody else. No, I mean, I was not talking about. Yeah, I have friends, but it was like she was always like the number one. It was so bad. I always said I wanted a wife that I could take home to mom and dad. Meaning that I've been married once before, and I always said that you know if I can't take you home to mom, if my mom and sister don't like you, then I got a problem. But and God granted my wish. My parents, my sister, I mean everybody in the family, they love her. They take her on. Actually, I think they side with her more than they side with me. So sometimes I get upset because I'm like, wait a minute. You know,
Whatever.
I'm a mama's boy, yes.
He is a mom.
I'm a mama's boy.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm like, who are you talking to? Oh, I'm talking to your mom. Your mom won't even call me today.
I'm like, she didn't want to talk to you
Which
today.
just
She
all
wanted
that
to talk
shit.
to
But all jokes aside, like I said, that goes, a long way, with me. Like I said, I know that she has my interest. My mom confides to her some things that she doesn't confide with me. So I know that God has sent me the right one, but like I said, it was just on His time. Like I said, we didn't end on a bad note. She never reached out to me like during her marriage, just to check and see like, hey, now some people like you don't communicate. When you're she never done that. This was after the fact. Like I said, I was impressed. I've had the same number for a while. I literally just changed my number probably
2 years ago.
2 years ago after all that time. So when I got this happy birthday text, I'm like, oh, she remembered my birthday. So it was like little heart started fluttering, like, oh.
And I don't even know he was. And like I just thought of him, and like I was telling him the other day, even like because I've been married before too, um, and it's like all the characteristics that he has. I felt like that I was trying to instill them in that other person. So it's like, I used to always compare, like, oh my God, Robert and I never said it out loud, but I was like, he and I used to go out to dinner together. We used to I could just be myself with him. And, I just was like, okay. So I just, like you said, I just feel it was God's timing. And I, for one, can say that I think being that I, have been married more than once, I won't say how many, but, like, I guess I would take some of that and I would be like, okay, I don't want to do this or do that. And then at the same time, he's such a gentleman versus, compared to the previous people that I was married to. So it's like sometimes when I guess I was not used to what he was giving me, that I felt like I was kind of being suffocated. I was used to having my independence. So I just felt like, okay, let me just, because he asked me before we even ghosted one another to marry me. And I was like, are you serious?
Shot me down, Joseph. Quick, no.
And he said, I would never forget. He looked at me. He was driving, going around the curve. We was like in McKinney, coming around that curve that he almost killed himself in, trying to get to me. And I was like, he looked at me. He was like, you wouldn't marry me? I was like, what did I say? Did I say no?
I don't know. We were listening to Snoop Dogg at that time. And I think the song. This what she did, Joseph. When I asked her, she was shocked, and she just continued bobbing her head
with
music.
I was like, oh, he's joking, right? But as I look at it, I kind of felt like I kind of hurt his feelings a little because he was like, you wouldn't marry me? I was like, are you serious? Like, stop playing. But that was years ago. And I think, like, I just feel like I don't know if I was ready. And I just feel like it was on God's time because, like I said before we reconnected, I did some soul searching myself due to my previous marriages. And I was like, okay, out of all of these marriages, I am the common denominator. So I needed to work on me and do some self-healing for myself in order to prepare myself for what God brought back to me. So I wasn't ready. So I had to go through in order to get to where I'm currently in right now. So if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it again.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that's a key thing that you all mentioned. Like I said, you started off, everything was smooth and great. You were making plans, the momentum was there, but then you both kind of, in your own way, arrived at the point that maybe we need to pause a little bit. Maybe we're going a little bit too fast, and unfortunately, there are couples who who didn't take heed to that, went on ahead and rushed through it, got married, only for that marriage to be short lived, because you had some warning signs, some flags that said pause, and you ignored the pause. And there's a variety of reasons why you might do that. And I could speak to that because I've been married before, and I was guilty of that very thing. About not pausing when the signs were there to pause, and then it ended up not working out, and that's unfortunate. But like you said, it's sometimes God will have to allow you to go through situations, especially if He's giving you that signal to pause. He's giving you that cue, and you just decided to ignore it. Sometimes He has to let us bump it and figure it out and learn from that lesson. So I appreciate the fact that you all recognize the importance of the pause, and again, it obviously proved to be a good decision because you ultimately were able to reunite despite having other relationships in between time. You were still able to reunite and ultimately become a married couple yourselves. And then I'd like to that you pointed out, Shana, which I think people need to understand is it when you've been married for a lot of times, when marriages fail, we're so quick in our marriages to blame that other person and have no common, accountability or our role in it at all. And I like the fact that you said, you know what, I identified that, I'm a common denominator in this. I identified that there are some things that I need to work on to prepare myself. And I think that's instrumental. That's key, especially if you've been married before, because you don't want to meet a great guy, meet a great woman, and you haven't had a chance to deal with that stuff, whether it's to heal, to work on some stuff, to straighten some things out about you, whatever that area of weakness is for you. You don't want to take that into that new relationship where you might have truly met that ideal person, but then you mess it up because you jumped into it too fast before you had a chance to kind of reset and get yourself in order and intact. And that subject has even come up in one of our episodes for this series where one of our spouses spoke about having to do that very thing, that whole process of resetting before going back out in the field, again to pursue, meeting someone. So those are very, very key points that you all brought up, and I appreciate that. And for our audience, because I meant to ask you this earlier, so let us know how long have you been married?
Audience, how long do you think?
How long do you think we've been married?
Well, my memory is correctly, I believe you're probably our shortest term marriage couple. I believe you've been a little bit over a year, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes,
Is
it's
that
a year. A year and a half.
A year and a half. Don't get that half.
a year and a half?
And a
Yeah, a
half.
year and a half.
And a
All
half.
right, all right. So
Still,
this is good. This is good. Year and a half. Again, you're because truth be told, there's a lot of marriages that don't even make a year.
Right.
So I mean, a year, that may seem like a minor accomplishment, but for our listeners, please understand if you can make that first year, that's a huge step. I mean, because by that time the newness of it is all, and that honeymoon phase is over, and you're starting to see the real of you and your partner, and it can get a little ugly sometimes. You're like, oh, this is who I married, this is what I mean, the wedding and all of that is nice and fun and pretty, and the gifts and all that wonderful stuff, but when all of the dust settles and you're having to really get into the work of the marriage, and it's a job. It's everybody has to have all their efforts into it to make it work. You got to be in the right mindset. You got to be in the right focus and be committed. You got to be all in to make it work. So
Absolutely.
appreciate that. So now that you've been married, not only having past marriage experiences, but now you're in this marriage, you're in a year and a half in. And as we've been talking about early on in our conversations here, marriage is a marathon, and there are going to be many good times and fun times, but every now and then you're going to be faced with some challenges, some obstacles that are going to come across in your marriage that could put the marriage to a test. That can put some strain, some pressure, some burden. Some things come up, and you're like, man, how are we going to work through this? This particular challenge or that particular challenge. So I'm curious to know from you, if you would share with us, tell us about a time, even in this first year and a half that you've been together, where you found yourself facing a challenging situation that you didn't know, how are we gonna get through this challenging situation? It was a little bit heavier, a little bit, weightier than just the other day to day type of stuff. What's that situation that comes to mind for you, and what was ultimately the turning point in that situation where you begin to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming out of that challenging moment?
Like we stated at the beginning, Mrs. Faulkner is a very, very strong woman. Um, we butt heads sometimes when it comes to finances,
Mm-hmm.
but not in a bad way. It's bad and good. So to elaborate on that, yes, I was blessed with my mom and dad. My mom and dad actually been married over 50 years. Like I said, I'm the oldest, college educated, brother and sister, college educated. I say that to say that I never really struggled for anything. So for me, it was like not a silver spoon, but I never had to figure, anything out when it comes to money or how was I going to do this or if I wanted it, I'm just going to get it. Those natures. Shady made me realize, like, man, hold on. Just because the money is there, that doesn't mean you spend it. So we had a situation where, yes, we have a joint account together, and she calls me Mr. Swiper. Swipe.
Mm.
Swipe.
He's
Swipe.
like swiper.
Swiper, no swiping.
Yeah.
I'm swiper.
He's a swiper. Swiper, no swiping.
So we had this bill that was coming up. She's like, babe, well, where's the money? I'm like, what do you mean? I thought the money was it. You don't check the account. That's my fault. I don't check the account. I just swipe. I just swipe. We got to this heated argument. You don't understand. That money is supposed to be for this. Da da da. We're arguing back and forth. She leaves for hours at a time. So in my head, I'm calling her. She's hanging up. Calling her, hanging up. Calling, hanging up. Calling, hanging up. I'm like, okay. So she's highly, highly mad at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, she came home with the finances. I mean, it wasn't like a lot, but I say that she did what she had to do. I wasn't used to that as far as struggling. She's been a single mother, for some time. So that kind of like, it wasn't a fork in the road, but it made me look differently and put everything in perspective. Like, you know what? She is right on that one. But in the end, she'll tell you, she'll be the one that'll be mad. I'm the one that always confronts and like, oh, babe, I'm sorry, because I can't be in the house and not speak. I'll get flowers. I'll go get a card or something. Like, look,
yes, he does.
I'm sorry because life is too short. We usually don't go to bed mad at each other. Like I said, I will honestly say that, if we have an argument, we usually do try to work it out because in this, communication is very, very key. If you cannot talk to your spouse through good and bad, definitely you need to sit back and reevaluate because sometimes the truth hurts. And when she hit me with that, like, babe, you got to do better with this. So as a result of that, she gives me $20 a week in a separate account, and she controls all the finances. Actually, I was going to ask her for a raise. I was going to ask her for $50 a week, but she's still debating that.
More than $20 a week.
Yeah,
You said $20 a week.
More than $20 a week.
Yeah, no, she gives me $20 a week.
$22.50.
Yeah,
No.
$22.50. $22.50. Yes.
Wow. Well, first of all, I appreciate your honesty in sharing this, and secondly, this is a very common thing that happens in marriages. And again, without that communication that you spoke of, this is the very type of thing that will break a marriage in pieces. Like you said, I know in my household, I'm the one that's more likely to watch the account than swipe. My significant other, she's the swiper.
She's the swiper.
And so I've had to have conversations like, hey, did you even look to see, because, and again, but it communication, because nothing against the swiper, because sometimes the swiper doesn't understand if you don't communicate to the swiper.
That is true.
Yes.
And so that's something that even I've had to learn, well, because that would typically be the counter argument would be, well, I'm thinking that you pretty much handle this, that I'm thinking unless you tell me
right
that I need to be aware of that if I'm in swipe mode, that I might swipe into something that we can't afford to be swiping into because that's going to disrupt something else.
That's true.
Communicate that to me.
That's true.
Now, the person who's normally, the one that's not the swiper, what we have a tendency of doing is in our minds, we're like, well, you should have known. Like, what made you think that you can just... So it's assumption that we're making, which is unfair to the swiper. But then at the same time, the swiper's not taking into consideration that, this is not just an unlimited thing. We not, you may be financially pretty solid, but that doesn't mean that there's an infinite supply there that you could just keep on going, and that it just will never run out. I mean, in an ideal perfect world, that would be great, but that's not necessarily the reality. And so again, it comes down to that communication piece. And that's why I'm glad in this particular situation, as you've shared that story, that, it started out as you done got on my nerves and I need a few hours away from you because I'm not really liking you right now. But it ultimately ended with, we need to talk.
Right.
We need to perhaps set some boundaries, some things of that nature to outline, perhaps some allowances or just checking in to kind of know, okay, this time of the month is when which comes out, or this pay period is when this comes out, or whatever. We got to be a little, we got to kind of juggle that thing, as we need to, and nothing wrong with that as long as the both of you are on the same page and communicating, because there's nothing more frustrating for particularly the one who's, typically controlling the account and thinking that there's something there and they're going to pay that bill or whatever. And then and they get hit with a surprise expenditure that you didn't factor in. So then now I gotta reshuffle, and that's that survivor instinct, as you shared with us. She's been a single mom before, so she's had to kick in that survival mode. So it's like, hey, I need to know, what's going on. So appreciate you sharing that, because like I said, this is a very, very common thing that happens with a lot of marriages. And just the mere fact that the two of you had a joint account, because it just blows me away how many, I know my wife and I, we've encountered numerous friends of ours who've been married and they don't even have joint accounts. They're still kind of in the mode of, my money, your money, you got this bill, I got that bill, and
we have separate accounts per se, but we do have this like one joint account. I know majority, basically, except for 2250, all goes into that account that she has access for. And I'm a bigger man to admit it, that she's better at the finances than I am. She's the one. Not saying I don't pay my bills, but I know she's going to pay those bills. If nothing else, if we only got 2250 in that account, I can bet sure my baby the everything's paid. The credit cards, whatever, rent, whatever, all that is paid. So I'll give her that. But it's just like I think it's that when you have that. Not saying there's nothing wrong with those couples out there that don't have a joint account, but it's like, not saying that's like a secret. Not so much a secret, but it's like I would feel like I would be hiding something from her, like like, well, babe, here, this is for you. This is my check. This is what I make, whatever. I know that also. Same thing with we have some friends that they have separate accounts. And I'm like, well, how do you guys? Well, when it's time for bills,
that's exactly what they do. They say, I'm going to pay this bill. I'm like, so like we do have our own personal accounts as well, but we do have, as he say, all but $22.50 go into the.
And again, there's nothing. And when I make the joint account, argument, if you will, or discussion, I'm really speaking for, again, those couples who, again, you're supposed to be married, you're supposed to be one, but you're operating like as if you're like your roommates.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because that's what we did when we were roommates with people. It's like, okay, here's the bills, this is your portion, this is my portion. We didn't have blended accounts. Nothing wrong with having a primary account jointly that's sort of the core account for the main bills. And then if you have your own individual accounts where you have your mad money, whatever that you want to do, whatever you want to do with, there's a lot of couples who operate in that mode, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
It's just about, it's unfortunate when you have, again, people who are married, but they're operating like they're single, or they're operating like like I said, they're disjointed from one another. And that's just kind of a conflict of interest for me. Personally, I'm thinking, why'd you bother to get married if you didn't want to throw it all together?
Yeah.
So that's just something. So that's why I say when you all mentioned about, hey, we got our joint account, but we also have our separate accounts when we want to do nothing wrong with that. It's about, at the end of the day, it ultimately comes down to that communication and understanding, that, because you want to make sure that for your survival's sake, for your just the day-to-day basic needs, are we good? Are we covered? And if the two of you aren't on the same page with that, then that's a problem. And so, it's always good to hear, even in the early stages of your marriage, a year and a half in, that this is a key priority thing for you. It's already been a challenge that's come up, but you've tapped into that and you got on top of it
That's
as you needed to. So now we're not talking about another marriage that went left. We're talking about a marriage that survived that hurdle. We can move forward and we can grow and we can build on that. So perfect story that you all shared, and again, very real and relatable type of thing that happens in a lot of marriages. So any of my listeners that's tuning in, especially the ones who thinking about getting married, please, you got to make sure you got that proper mindset as it pertains to how you're going to, handle money issues, and are you doing it collectively as a collective unit and not playing this separate game of, again, my money, your money,
Exactly.
and that kind of thing, and getting into that danger zone of being secretive about it,
mm-hmm.
so to speak. That shouldn't be any of that when it comes to the finances. So good stuff, good stuff. So Robert and Shana, I'm curious to know, when as married couples, there's also going to be those moments in time when big decisions have to be made. Sometimes they're financial decisions. Sometimes it could be decisions on where we live. Maybe a career move, things of that nature. To have children or not have children, whatever the scenario might be. But as we know in our marriages, when these big decisions come before us, there are going to be some times when we're faced with that decision, but the husband and wife are on completely opposite ends as to how they see this thing needing to play out. And so what I'm curious to know from the two of you is, when you find yourself having to make a big decision about something, regardless of what that big decision is, but the two of you are on completely opposite ends as to how you think that resolution, that ultimate decision should be. You both don't see, you're not seeing eye to eye. You're at an impasse. What process do the two of you like to use that works best for you when you find yourself at that standstill, at that impasse, so that you can ultimately get to making that final decision that's going to be, beneficial for the two of you as a married couple?
You want to go? When we go?
I'll let you go first, then I'll go.
Okay. So I'm trying to put this politically correct for all the couples out there. Um, I know that they say like the man is the head of the household and he is supposed to lead in that nature. But when it comes to like those big joint decisions, I used to just act off impulse right now. Whatever the first thing that comes to my mind, that's what we're gonna do. Since I've been married to Mrs. Faulkner here, she made me sit back and realize, oh, daddy, hold on.
Yep.
Put those reins on.
Yep.
Let's figure this out. Let's write out the pros and cons, or as her favorite response is, she thinks out the box. And I never thought about that. I'm like, what do you mean think out the box? She always puts it like, well, babe, these are the good things, and these are the good things over here. But then you got these bad things and these bad things over here. So what outweighs the good and the bad? I will honestly say she's the one who has taught me that. So I can honestly say that when it comes to those big decisions, I kind of let her take the lead in that, and I follow up. Now, don't get me wrong, I will voice my opinion. I will say, out of 10 times, I'm going to say maybe, I hate to say this, probably about 8 or 9, 10 times, she's probably right. But what I love about her, she's never said, I told you so. Like, I told you. She never rubs it in my face. She just sits back and let me, what should I say, bump my head and just sit back and be like, it's a learning experience. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
our household.
Nice, nice. Anything you'd like to add to that, Shayna, as far as that
Well,
process works?
I just kind of, have to sit back, like he says. I mean, I guess like being a single parent, you have
Mm-hmm.
to sit down and just think about a lot of things before you make a move, because even just life or work or anything, I've learned to be more patient,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you can be so hot-headed and upset and you make decisions based off your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't go back and take it back, so sometimes it's best to just sit down and think about it. And I've also learned too, like I tell him, that we sometimes look at things that happen bad in our life and we be like, oh my god, but I've learned to take the bad and look at it as if God is just preparing me for something
Mm-hmm.
good that's going to come. So
Mm-hmm.
I may not, I may walk in and say, well, it's my job. We don't need you today. I mean, I can get upset, but then I can say, you know what? God has something that's in store for me that's much better than where I'm currently am. So I just learned to kind of just look at things differently and look at life differently, and to not react to everything, because every action does not deserve a reaction. So sometimes, and I like he said, I let him go and decide or do whatever he wants to do. But I never will say to him, "I told you so," because I'm not trying to tear him down as a man. I'm not trying to do that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm here to build him up, and he's here to build me up. So that's one thing I like. We just take each other's feelings into consideration. So yeah.
I love the fact that again that you make it a point not to, like you said, throw in one another's face. The potential of you making a bad judgment, a bad mistake, or whatever. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you tell me if I'm wrong. But there's is it realistic for me to say that there are some instances, Shana, where you might, because you've already established yourself as sort of being the primary one that's kind of has the advantage, if you will, of being how to handle money. Do you ever is it hard sometimes for you, or do you find yourself at times where you look at the pros and cons as you both talked about and you say it's looking like it should lean towards the way I'm thinking, but I know Robert really wants to do this.
Oh,
Do you
absolutely.
ever, I'm gonna let him have this one, even though I'm not in love with this.
Hmm.
Yes.
He really is passionate about wanting to do this. I'm gonna roll the dice on this one, and I'm gonna let him have this one, and I'm gonna support him. I'm not gonna, like you said, I'm not gonna throw it in his face, but I'm gonna let him have this one. Do you have those kind of moments
I do.
that you extend that to him, and vice versa, even where you might say, "Hey, Robert, you might say, Shayna, you usually on the point with this, but I think this time I'm the one that's on point with this one. You not saying where you kind of defer to her and let her have that.
So I would say, Joseph, when it comes to stuff like that, maybe like um, big, big decisions, like for her to just step out on faith, doing little things like with her book. She had never been on a plane before. Just little things like that. She will
Follow his
follow
lead.
my lead on that. But then with her, she comes back to me with little things like, well, babe, what's an example? Well, do you think I should get this? Yeah. I don't think twice about stuff like that. But from her past, she always has to think about, the kids, what bills she has to pay, what's in the bank, and I get that, and I respect that. But I sometimes tell her, babe, you can't take it with you. You work so hard. You deserve to treat yourself. So yeah, absolutely. Like I said, she lets me bump my head. Just a couple business ventures or some purchases. Babe, I don't think that's a good idea. So when she hits that tone in her voice, that really means no, and it also means I wish you would. I done sat here and told you you better not. I know like the diction in her voice, like, oh, that's fine. She really don't have like that. I don't care. I mean, it's up to you. But when she says no, I don't think that's a good idea. When she gets serious, and I know, okay, I better not do that. I might be in trouble. I might be in the doghouse.
And the reason why I asked that, I mean, because I was kind of driving home the idea of, in marriage, especially when it comes to our finances, sometimes there has to be a little bit of compromise. Sometimes you're going to be the one that your reasoning far outweighs, say, the reasoning of your spouse. But it's a situation where you have to say to yourself, is it worth me being right
Right.
in this moment versus maybe doing what's, extending a kind gesture or extending kind of going against what I would normally want to do for the sake of my spouse because they really want to do this. I
Right.
mean, I've had moments like that, where again, I'm the money guy. So my wife wants to do something and I'm thinking like, that's really risky to the financial situation, but I know you really want to do this. This is something that you're feeling very strong about, and I'll say, I'll figure it out. You
Right.
go ahead and do that. And the same thing has happened to me. And you actually brought up a good point when you mentioned like, and Shana can relate to this. We both are, we're both authors.
Hmm.
Well, to arrive at that author moment, Anybody who's ever crossed down that path and writing, it's more than just sitting down writing a book and then it just happens. There's cost for editing, there's cost for design covers, and then when you make this investment, and then now you got the book in hand. That's a great accomplishment, but then now you got to move it. Like, you got to actually get it in people's hands, and there's a lot of money and investment, and these are things that you can't predict how it's gonna turn out. You could have the best book and you could love it to death, but that doesn't mean that there's gonna be a line outside ready to buy it.
Right.
And so if you got that spouse who was not a part of that, that's not their book, or that's not their business venture, and you are passionate about it, and you're like, we don't know how this thing is gonna go. But your spouse really believing in this, really feeling passionate about it. And so sometimes you compromise in the means of support, not necessarily putting everything at risk where you can put your whole lives financially in jeopardy, but maybe making some concessions, maybe making some leeway for that spouse to say, you know what, I want you to do this. I want you to be successful in this. So I'm going to defer to you, even though I feel differently about it, and vice versa. I'm going to defer to you, even despite my feelings about it. So I think sometimes we run into that as couples, but it's a good thing when couples can make that happen. And it's clear that the two of you kind of operate in that mode from time to time where you have those situations. And that's just a thing. Cause I know even with my wife, she fusses at me. Sometimes her actual words will be, you need to quit trying to fall on the sword, and not, do something for yourself. She might say, you need a new pair of shoes, or you need a new this. And
Right.
I'm okay. No,
That's
you
me.
need this, and will insist on it, because I'm just looking at the money, but she's like, I know you're concerned about the money, but you need this. So we gonna go ahead and we getting this, and you, and as a husband, you appreciate, even though I might be hesitant about the money, I appreciate the fact that you care enough about whatever that situation is, whether it's a new pair of shoes, you need some new something else, or whatever, you need to go to the doctor and get this checked out. I'd rather you do that for your benefit, for your sake, because I care about you, because I love you. We'll figure out the money part, but you need this for you. And so to have a spouse that kind of looks out for you like that, and again, I see that in the two of you, where those type of moments will happen, where you just say, you know what, in this case, we're just going to roll with this. We're just going to make it happen because it's in the best interest of my spouse. And we're just going to trust God that he's going to make a way, that if I'm worried about the money part of it, if I'm worried about the risk part of it, he's going to be behind this. And, we'll take it to him in prayer, and we're just going to trust and believe that he's going to navigate us accordingly, so that we are not way over our heads, but that, by having faith and trusting in him to lead the way, everything is going to work itself out okay. And I don't know about you, but I know when I've applied that principle in my own life, never fallen short on me, and I would imagine the same has been the case for the two of you. So
Absolutely.
Yes, it
so
has.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And again, I love the way you all kind of just sit down and work through those difficult decisions, even if you're on both opposite ends, kind of weighing pros and cons. That's about that communication again that we're going back to. So good stuff. Good stuff. So Robert and Shana, there's going to be a lot of people, we're already in the mode of this, Marathon of Marriage series. So far, I've got a lot of positive feedback. But one of the things that's been brought to my attention, even in the episodes that have come out so far in this series, is that we've had some couples that are tuning in, and they're tuning in because they're about ready to give up on their marriage. And it could be a variety of reasons that they're wanting to give up. But we have couples that are paying attention to this series, and which is why this series is so important, that they're ready to quit. They're done. They're over it. They're ready to wave the white flag and give in. And so my question for you, the two of you, would be, to those couples that are ready to throw in the towel, or maybe maybe that individual who's been down this marriage road before and it didn't work out, and they're a little gun shy about giving it a try again. They may have even met somebody that they think is really nice and good potential, but they're hesitant because they've already had a rough time at it the first time around or the second time around, and they're worried about this happening again. What would be your advice, your words of wisdom to those couples that are ready to give it up, or the ones that just don't even want to give it another try again? What would you say to them as to why they should really think about fighting for their marriages, or giving it that second chance?
Well, like we've been saying for the past hour, communication is key, not only in marriage, but in life, in your workplace. Actually, I think one of the brothers of the church, that was the theme of his sermon. You're communicating, all the negativity and the badness to your wife or your friend, but we need to tell the people that are committing this and doing bad, you need to tell them that. So I say that communication is key. And my grandmother always said, rest her soul, there is someone for everyone. Mm-hmm. I don't believe we're put on this earth to die alone. I know we live in a society where you can get married today, divorced tomorrow, married today, divorced tomorrow. I've been, like I said, I've been married before, but I look back, at my mom and dad, and I always said, like, man, my parents have been married, how long, babe? 50, 56, 50, 57 years? And not saying that it didn't come with challenges. I know when I first got married, I'm like, oh, that's going to be me. I'm never going to leave. I'm going to do this till the end, till I die, da, 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 da. And I got a divorce. I got a divorce, and I learned this from my first marriage is you cannot change a person.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that the hard way. I thought that maybe that this person would change, or I could change this person, and then vice versa. And to piggyback on that, it takes two. Both of you have to be committed in that to make it work. Like I said, it's not going
Mm-hmm.
to be all roses every day. Oh, honey, I love you. This is wonderful. No, so some days,
I just want to slap you.
she just might want one of those nights, she's snoring all night, and I'm Netflixing
Oh.
movie. But I still, love her for that because I know what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know that she snores before we got married. I know she snored this bad, but she snored. I adapted to that. But like I said, it takes two. It's a communication piece. Like I said, for all those couples out there that you can think about throwing the towel in, hey, you got to put it in God's hands and just sit down and go to your spouse. Like I said, it's been plenty of times that Shannon's come, Robert, we need to talk. So, when your significant other says that you need to talk, make sure you listen. Don't just
listen to respond.
yeah, listen to respond. She taught me that because she was Robert. You listening? Because she said you're so nonchalant. I'm not. I'm listening. Trust me. I'm listening. I'm taking it all in here.
I want him to look at me.
Yeah, I may not react the way she wants me to react,
Like,
but
look at me.
yeah, I'm definitely listening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I tell like I say everybody, and communication is definitely a key, and definitely you got to have God. Like I said,
Yeah.
without God, I mean, hey, whatever religion you may be, you have to go to that man upstairs to let him guide the way for you.
And for me, as I stated, I've been married several times. I won't say
Several.
how many times have I been married.
Yeah, okay, not several. Anyway.
So I've been married, and for me, like his parents were married and everything, but for me, my parents were not married. So I think I, was kind of longing for the family, what I didn't have, and so I ended up marrying my ex spouses, the father of my children and everything. But I just was like it. I think I married, as you stated previously, I didn't really get to know the persons. So I just went off of, oh, this and this and that. And then actually, as my grandmother told me, I spend more time looking for shoes than I did trying to learn a man. So that's what my grandma told me. Now I'm Miss Essie. So I was like, maybe she got a point. So, I just feel like, I didn't really put too much effort into those relationships. But after the one that I was with prior to him, it made me look at myself and say, okay, look, you need to focus on yourself and see what is going on within you. So, Robert, it's different, and I'm willing to put up a fight for this marriage versus probably my other marriages because, I feel like we first of all, we respect one another and we communicate. If you don't have respect, trust, and communication, then you don't have a relationship.
Mm.
Because you can have a physical attraction to one another, but once that physical attraction is gone, then what do you have? If I can't lay here in the bed and talk to you and you be my best friend, or get mad at you today, or but we still together, then it's a problem. So it's like you're going to have your problems in a marriage. As he stated, there's not going to be peaches and cream or all the time, but it's up to you to fight for it. If it's worth having, it's worth fighting for. Because let me tell you, it's nothing out there in the streets, honey. I was like, I don't want to learn anybody else over again. We knew one another previously, so it's like, okay, I already know. Like he said, he know I snore. I know he snore. Passes gas sometimes too, y'all, in his sleep. So you came for me, I'm coming for you. But I knew all these things. He likes to get up to eat all through the night. I knew this. So it's like,
Mm.
so it's like I didn't want to learn. So it's like he said, we've had our little rough patches. And yeah, I'm the one that likes to leave all the time. But I've learned through this relationship leading into this marriage that you have to talk about it. And I genuinely know that he loves me and I love him because, like I said, he's very supportive. I've never took a flight until I got with him. I was afraid of flying until my first flight. It's just a lot of things that I've done. He, like you said about your wife, she tells you need to do this, and that's him. You need to do this. You deserve this. You deserve. I'm like, no, I don't think I should. But if you love the person and you guys have invested time in one another, I think you should fight for it because you don't want to go out there and start all over with someone else, especially if you have children. What I think one should do is you should go back to that moment to where you first met that person and just sit down and think about what made me fall in love with you. What was it
Mm-hmm.
that, what, not just the physical attraction, but what made me genuinely fall in love with you for the person you are on the inside, not the outside, because this can change, but this will never change. So, just go into your little space and say, look, what made me attracted to this woman and what made me attracted to this man? And fight for it. But first, like he said, you got to have God. If you don't have God, but don't just give up because God don't give up on us. So why should we give up on our spouse?
Right. Love that. Love that. Love that. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, it has been thoroughly enjoyable chopping it up with the two of you about marriage, and you've dropped some gems, some very wonderful things that we can apply right away to our respective marriages, and it's powerful stuff considering that you are only been married a year and a half, and so much knowledge that you have offered up to not only to myself but to our audience that's going to be of great value. But before I let you go, two things I want to do. One, of course, give you an opportunity to speak about any closing thoughts on what our couples out here, our married couples, need to take away from the day, and make sure that you make this a part of your marriage. Make sure that this is an active element to your marriage if you want it to last the long term. And I also want to take an opportunity to love on the two of you, to celebrate you and acknowledge you. So if you got anything exciting coming up, going on right now, or coming down the pike that we need to know about, that we can celebrate, that we can uplift, we definitely want to do that. So let's start off first with the closing thoughts. What do these married couples? What's your last bit of information, advice you want to give them as we step away from our conversation today? You want your marriage to last? You need to do this.
Communication. I can't stress that enough. Communication is key. I know we live in a society of social media. Everybody has their phone attached to the hip. Out of 24 hours, people are on their phone probably 13 hours out of the day. If you could spend that much time communicating on your phone, you could definitely communicate that to your wife. I know my wife is definitely social media, but you know what I love about her. Every morning before I go to work, we always say "I love you" and give each other a kiss, some form of affection. Because who knows? Hey, I could be going down that street. God forbid, I may get in an accident, get whatever the case, vice versa. But at least I know I have that last moment of saying, that she did tell me that she loves me. I know she loves me. And a milestone. I got two things actually. My wife's birthday is coming up August 19th. So we would like some feedback. I'm trying to decide where I want to take her. Decided yet. So for all you listeners out there, contact Joseph. Just give us some insight of where I want to take my wife. Like I said, she doesn't like to travel. I'm the traveler. So I want to take her somewhere special. And and she's an accomplished author. I'm so proud of her. She will be joining Joseph's podcast this week, also talking about her book. It was so funny. Like I said, when we first got together, she said, "Oh, I have this book I've written and poems." I'm like, "Well, babe,
Yeah,
why?"
I write poems too.
I'm like, "Why don't you publish it?" I don't know. And that's been wow. When was that? That was years. That was been
Yeah,
almost.
I finished that book before I even met him. I finished this book. I've been sitting on it for since 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I need to get it edited. And then a little voice inside of me said, "Girl, the book is already edited," because someone that from my hometown, she's also an author, and I had sent it to her because she went to school with my late father, and she had already edited it, and I didn't even think about it. So
I say that to say, always support your spouse.
he encouraged me.
It's an encouragement. Just because it's not my book, but you guys are a team. So I support her, whatever her endeavors may be. If that's what she wants to do, I'm here for support. And I want to see her succeed because if she succeeds, we both succeed.
Exactly.
So that's all I have.
Yeah, he's very supportive, and I appreciate that. And as he said, communication. You have to communicate. You must trust one another.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I do be on social media, I don't think I be on it as much as I used to be on it, I think. But that social media can cause problems within your home.
Mm.
That being said, sometimes it's not too good to be on social media, but we're both on it, but we have a tendency to communicate, send each other stuff. But yeah, I think you have to communicate with one another. You have to trust one another, and you have to respect one another. If you don't have those three along with God,
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Because for me, I think the best thing for me is that he is a God-fearing man, and that's something I felt like I had an issue with when it came to certain people. So he convinced me, like you said, to join the choir because I would not join the choir. He's like, "Well, you got to join the choir." So there I am. So he's one to uplift me when I doubt myself. So and I appreciate that very much. And that's how come sometimes I can just smile and be like, because I'm thinking about those moments where he's uplifted me and believed in me more than I believed in myself. And another thing that he also does too, I don't know how he knows, but it'd be some mornings where I'm just feeling some type of way, and I get in my car, and what do I have? A card sitting on my seat for me. So he's very good about surprising me with cards, flowers, and just the small things. So it's like you don't have to do big things. It's just this little small things that can make a person feel like hey, I appreciate you. So communicate, respect, trust, and just love on one another. Just love on
I
one another.
love that.
Love on one another.
Love that. I'm gonna have to steal some of your moves, Robert. Steal
Oh,
some of your smooth moves, man.
that's me.
He's smooth with it, honey.
You
I was
smooth
like,
with
where
it,
this song
man.
come from? I'm like, oh.
The reason I do it, I'm a card person. I just because you say you're not affectionate enough. It's not that I'm not affectionate. I think I'm just not so much. So I guess I'm a mama's boy. My mom has I have my mom's way. It's like nonchalant. Like it takes a lot to get me going, but once I get going, I get going. But a lot of stuff that most like to say normal people, but I just
Yeah, he's like, oh.
but not saying that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just who I am. Like I said, what's good for me may not be good for you. So I try to express myself in other ways. Like I said, definitely the cards. I just don't, I read the cards and they have meaning. So
They're very thoughtful. I'll be like, you picked this out? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, okay.
hey Joseph, don't let the gray hair fool you, son.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that, man.
Oh,
That is awesome. That is awesome. Shana, for our listeners, would you please tell us again the title of your book, and if anybody wants to check it out, how can they
get
do
it.
so?
It's actually, you know what? I'm going to step off the camera for a moment and get the book. So I did have the finished book, but what we did was let me go just a moment. I'll be right back. Don't.
Okay, no problem. No
To
problem.
Pensacola for Juneteenth. And my father wanted a signed copy, so she gave her last signed copy to my father. So she just ordered some more.
Okay, cool,
So this
cool.
is actually the book, and it is for sale on Amazon, and it is titled "Finding Me to Love Me." That is my beautiful picture on the back. This is my first baby, and like he said, I do write poems. And at the very end, I did write a poem So you can go on Amazon and you can find it on Amazon. Finding Me to Love Me. I'm very excited about it because this is my first one. So I'm
For
like,
readers over 18.
yes, I'm telling you right now, it's not for the children. So, so the kids. But it just talks to it's just like it's not really a bible, it's like more of not an autobiography. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's more like a little bit of my life and other things that I've encountered. Like I said, I wrote this book. Been sitting on it since 2012, and like I told my husband, so it's just up to that point. But I'm currently also working on another one titled "Loving Me" because even though this is titled "Finding Me to Love Me," I didn't find myself so until some years ago. So,
Until you found me. What do you mean?
oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's a so yeah, so this is the book. So guys, go on Amazon, purchase it. It's a good read. All of my coworkers and family and friends that have actually purchased it said it's a good read. So I'm really excited about it. And I'm looking forward to all the feedback. So I'm just excited and very thankful that I finally did it, and my husband encouraged me to do so. So I'm excited and just looking forward to see what God takes us on this journey.
Well, that is absolutely awesome. And again, congratulations to you on your book. To my listeners, she's told you where you can catch a copy of that book. So make sure you support and get a hold of it. I'm pretty sure you're going to be blessed in reading it. And again, it's just been a blessing to have the both of you on. I've really enjoyed learning another layer of who you are as a couple, as a married couple, and and I'm excited for you. I mean, I think your future is bright as a married couple. I'm glad that both of you had an opportunity to get that second chance again to be with the
Yeah.
the right one, and you're lining it up in the way that God has intended for it to be lined up. So that's important. And you know, as we all know here, if God is in the mix of it all, the possibilities are endless as to the many blessings that can come up out of this marriage, and
That's right.
the years and years of happiness and joy, and just the building of memories with one another. So again, thank you so much. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our content today, you've been blessed by our guests, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is what it's all about. We want to encourage, we want to uplift, we want to pour into you. And for this special series that we're doing, Marathon of Marriage, we want to see our marriages survive. We want to see our marriages thrive. We want to see our marriage. We want to be living examples of what marriage is supposed to be like. Not saying that it's easy, not saying that it's all a bed of roses all the time. Sometimes you're not going to like your spouse very much on a given day. But this is a journey. This is a marathon for the life, for the long haul. And we just have to learn how to love one another conditionally, putting God first at the head of our marriages. And as I've stated, you'll be able to overcome all of those challenges, those storms that are going to come along the way over the course of your marriage, and you put yourself in the best position possible to grow old and gray, loving on one another, and again being that positive example of what many would consider one of the greatest creations that God could have ever made, which is marriage. As my brother said here earlier, we weren't meant to be by ourselves. There's somebody for everybody. We just have to make sure that we're seeking the right source to direct us accordingly, to give us the discernment and understanding who we are to partner up with and who we perhaps shouldn't be partnering up with.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is a place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. Fight for your marriages. Keep loving on one another unconditionally. Don't sucker punch one another with throwing things in each other's faces. We're all going to fall short. We're going to all make mistakes. Love each other in spite of our flaws, our imperfections, because we're both imperfect, but we can be perfect together with God at the head of it all. So you guys take care of yourselves. I thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.